Hi, everyone, and welcome to SoundStory. I'm Randy Karraker. It is great to have you with us and great to review the life and times of Tom Jackson. Tom, it is great to see you. How are you doing today?
Thank you. How are you?
Good. So we'll do a podcast interview, basically, of your life and time. So let's get things started by you telling us when you were born, where you were born, and how you grew up.
I was born in McLeansboro, Illinois, 1945. Lived there for probably 4 to 5 years when I was very young. I remember two houses we lived in there. My sister was 3 years younger than me. She was born there. And we moved to Mount Vernon. And probably 1950, I would imagine, we moved there. And lived there until I was 12 years old. My earliest memories of Mount Vernon is playing Little League baseball. We used to ride our bicycles up to the ball fields and played baseball. Went through halfway through the 6th grade in elementary school in Mount Vernon. So still have a lot of friends there. Guys that I knew, guys that until the last 20 years I still saw regularly because I would go to Mount Vernon to referee basketball. I refereed high school basketball. And I'd see some of these guys. And I can remember my grandfather take me to games at Mount Vernon High School. And at that time in the 50s, Mount Vernon was king of basketball. They'd won 4 state championships. And I'd walk into that gym and I'd think, oh my God, this is the biggest gym in the world. And went back 25, 30 years later and thought, oh my God, they ought to condemn this place. It's so small.
So what were summers like for 5 to 12-year-old Tom Jackson as you're there? As you mentioned, you rode your bikes to games, but did you ever stop playing ball during the summer? What were they like?
We played ball every day. Every day we played ball. We had no video games, nothing. So TV was in its infancy. So all I can remember on TV was the Howdy Doody show and Texas Bruce from St. Louis. You know, we got 2 or 3 stations at the time. So we spent all our time playing baseball.
And you mentioned Little League, but I'm sure, because I was the same way, that not everything was organized. When you guys organized it yourself, right? Tell us about those games.
We played, we called it Indian ball back then. We'd have one guy pitching to you, and then you'd have 2 guys out in the field. Like a shortstop if you're a right-hand hitter, and an outfielder. And if you hit a base hit, that was a hit, you know, and you kept playing like that. And we played that, we'd play at the City Park, which is 3 blocks from my house, Mount Vernon City Park. Or we'd go up to the Little League fields before the game started, and we'd play up there. Or we'd play down at Jefferson School or Field School, the 2 schools I went to then. We were in Mount Vernon. And we played there every day. And the one thing I can remember, a buddy of mine, the best ball glove made at the time was a Rawlings Stan Musial Heart of the Hide, $20.
Wow.
That glove now is over $400. So,
and you took so much pride, you broke that thing in, right?
I didn't have one.
Your buddy had one?
Yeah. I had a $10 one.
Okay.
But I remember one guy who had
the Musial one?
The Musial glove, yeah.
So, and you know, Tom, I would think that your great-grandkids will be amazed when you tell them this, but because, again, I did the same thing. Was your mode of transportation as a youngster the bicycle? Did you go everywhere on your bike?
Whenever we're in town. And would be terrified now if my grandchildren did that.
Right.
But yeah, we rode it. And when I was 10 years old, I rode it from 22nd Street in Mount Vernon all the way up to Main Street by the junior high school, which was probably 2 miles away, almost like that. And we'd ride our bikes up there every day.
Right.
And ride it to practice that night or to everywhere we went, we rode our bikes.
And did you have to tell your mom where you were going?
Mom and Dad both worked, so they knew. We had, at that time, we had a babysitter, an elderly lady who was a friend of my great-grandmother. And she came over and babysat during the day. My sister stayed home with her, but I was pretty much out on my own, and they knew where I was going to be, at all times. So, and I remember, I think it was probably 1954 at Christmas, I got a Schwinn bicycle, and I rode that everywhere. I had that bike till I was probably 21, I wish I still had it.
Sure.
Can't ride too well anymore, but like to have it was a great bicycle.
What was your family like? Brothers, sisters?
One sister.
Just you, one sister.
One sister. She's 3.5 years younger.
3.5 years younger. And were you the protective big brother at times? I mean, that's a pretty. The gap doesn't really allow for that either, does it?
Yeah, it wasn't. There weren't any problems there that I remember. I don't remember any problems there in my childhood.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to be, but I'm glad you didn't. How about school? How'd you do in school?
Average. Average student.
What were you good at?
Probably history. This was my best subject. I played basketball in the winter on the grade school team there at Horace Mann School, and I had one incident I'll never forget on that. I probably never told my children this. At the end of the year, you got to go to the Casey Junior High and play in a tournament. All the 6th grade teams did. So I went up there, and I think I was in the 5th grade the year before, and I got on the team. But I got put in late in the game. Our coach put me in the game, and I was running down the court, and a guy threw a pass, and it hit me in the back of the head and almost went in the basket. and the referee was the junior high basketball coach, a legend coach, and he almost died laughing.
Well, would you say that you were better at basketball or baseball?
Baseball. Baseball. Yeah, I was a better baseball player.
But you obviously liked basketball a lot, right? Because you wound up getting into it.
Yeah, I liked basketball. I enjoyed basketball, but baseball was probably my love back then.
Okay. And then you moved when you were 12. That was the next move,
12 years
right?
old, we moved to Belleville, and have lived there ever since. So I remember when we moved there. I remember the summer we moved there. I played basketball and baseball, in the summertime, and in the Corey League. I didn't know what the Corey League was till they moved over here in the Metro East. And we had Little League down Mount Vernon. Over here we had Corey League. So I played Corey League baseball, and that summer I remember one vivid memory I have of it. We beat this team 14-2, 14-8, and I pitched a 2-hitter. I walked the bases loaded twice, and the same guy hit 2 grand slams.
Oh, man. So we had Fernando Tatis Jr. in Chan Ho Park. You did that before Chan Ho Park
I did that for you, the one I did. That's right. Wasn't it the same inning like Fernando did? Right. But it was a great game, and I think I had 3 or 4 hits in a game. So, I went to 6th grade, and it was a much smaller school in Belleville that I went to than in Mount Vernon. They had no gym. They had no cafeteria. I was kind of shocked at that, Belleville being a big town.
Right.
But it seemed like that the grade school system wasn't as good as what I had in Mount Vernon. But then I went to junior high school in Belleville Junior High, and I played baseball and basketball. And we had, in the 7th grade year, I was the leading scorer on the 7th grade team, because we had a phenomenal team, and 5 of the guys played 8th grade.
Oh, man.
So when I got to my 8th grade year, I didn't play much.
Right.
Because we were 20-0. We never had a close game. And 4 of the guys on there ended up playing major college sports. It was
Wow.
an unbelievable team.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the move, because seems like a tough age to move. You've made friends, right? Up to the time you're 12. What was that like? What was that move like for you, moving to a new place and essentially having to make new friends?
It was tough because we were in the middle of the 6th grade, and I was on the 6th grade basketball team. And I had to tell my coach that we're moving to Belleville. It was right at Christmas time. So left all my friends, moved up here, and they had no organized basketball in the grade schools in Belleville. So my basketball for the year was over. And when I moved to Belleville, the funny, this had nothing to do with, but I had never been around any Catholic kids. I didn't know Catholic people. I'm Catholic now. But at the time, there were no Catholics in Mount Vernon. Maybe there was a real small Catholic church, and when I got to Belleville, it was very prominent, And life was just a lot different in Belleville than it was in a conservative Mount Vernon.
How did you adjust to that? Because if you didn't grow up Catholic, then your parents weren't either, right?
My parents weren't Catholic. No one in my family was Catholic.
So how did you adjust to that?
I think I did fine with it. Yeah.
Was it difficult?
Not at first. I mean, I heard some kids say, "Oh, you're a Protestant." Well, yeah, it's kind of unusual,
Right.
And the big memory I have of that is 1960 at the presidential election. I just gave Kyle, my son, a book at Christmas on the 1960 election. And I remember that vividly because my grandmother and my two aunts said they would not vote for John F. Kennedy because he was Catholic. They didn't want the Pope running the country, which I didn't understand that. But when he finally died, they cried like babies because they come around to realize he was a good person.
Right.
At least as politically he was.
Right.
But I remember in 1960.
So you're about 15 then, right?
15. I'm a freshman, and it may have been that fall. It was the fall right before the election. Kennedy came down West Main on a motorcade, which they'd never dreamed of doing up today, obviously. Yeah. And so we all got out of school, and we went down on Main Street. And I've told my grandkids this story. They get a big kick out of it. He was shaking everyone's hand. So I put my hand out to shake John Kennedy's hand, and he cut my hand. He scratched me with his fingernails.
Oh, wow.
And the girls all said, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Let it bleed. And that was when I was a freshman in high school. But 7th and 8th grade years were great years. I remember being at Belleville Junior High, and it was just a real fun 2 years playing basketball and baseball with those guys who, the ones that aren't dead, I still am friends of.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you can't plan that, but how did that emerge that you guys were able to stay close to each other for such a long time?
Well, a couple of them still live in the area. One guy lives in Minneapolis and he never fails to come back for a reunion. He's always here and we're having an 80th birthday party in September. I know Bob will be here. And one's a coach there in Belleville, Roger Miller, longtime basketball coach there. So we just, we still see each other, and a lot of my classmates in those 2 years and then into high school, where I still have contact with.
Now, you mentioned when you moved that the school wasn't that big. What about once you got to Belleville Township High School? Was that big at that time?
A lot bigger. 700 in our graduating class.
Wow.
I graduated in 1963. And we had it was a big class. The ones after it were even bigger till 1966 when the school split. But I played basketball my freshman year. I played baseball my freshman year. And then I had a heart murmur, and I had to quit playing. They wouldn't let me play. So I played in, they had a teenage center league. I played in that with some friends and attended a lot of the games. We had great sports teams at Belleville Township when I was in high school. The 1962 team, which is I graded the fall of '62, they were 10-0 undefeated. The quarterback was Gary Combrink, who was a 2-year starter at Missouri. Just a phenomenal team. Bob McKelvey was the halfback. He was honorable mention All-American at Northwestern. He's the guy who still comes back from Minneapolis. So it was a fun year watching. Then their basketball team, Dean Wrent's brother was a star of that team. He's deceased now, but we were number one in the state at one time with that team. So it was just a great sports year in Belleville.
Which is interesting that and I'm glad that you can say that it was fun. Do you remember how you reacted when they told you couldn't play anymore?
Yeah, I was very disappointed. Looking back now, I don't think about it much because I still stayed active in sports. The first year, I couldn't play basketball, so I asked Coach Turner if I could be a team manager, and he said, yeah. So I traveled with the team all the time, even before I was. And then the next years I didn't. I got a job and worked part-time. But I stayed involved in sports that whole time, and have ever since.
What was your first job?
J.C. Penney's.
What were you doing?
Just a clerk outside.
Uh-huh.
And did that for, probably a year. And then took a job at Fisher's Restaurant in Belleville.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the first busboys.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Fisher's Restaurant.
Legendary. We miss it. I will not go to the Dollar General they built there now. I refuse to walk.
Good for you.
Told my wife, I can't walk on that property when it's not Fisher's Restaurant. She says, I'm being silly. I said, well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it.
Good for you. No, it's because that's for you. Obviously, part of growing up, but it became, because it was around for such a long time, it was a part of your life, I'm sure.
WIBV was in the back
Uh-huh.
at that time, the
Yep.
radio station. They had a big miniature golf course behind that. It was phenomenal. And then they built the big Jubilee room, and we worked parties in there, and we did catering. And I went in there, it's been a couple of years ago now, before Kenny Fisher died. Mm-hmm. And his granddaughter was in there. She's a good friend of my son, Brent. And Kenny was sitting there where I always sit in the corner of the dining room. And she said, Grandpa, you remember Tom Jackson used to work here? And he said, yeah, I think we still got a check for you back there. I said, well, guess what, Kenny? I'm not going to go back and get it because you might make me wash dishes again. So we had a lot of fun working there.
That's great. And you had fun? Did you enjoy that industry, the restaurant industry? And at that age, I think you just want to do a job. But how'd you like the industry, the restaurant industry?
Well, at that time, I liked it because I had a lot of freedom. Too much freedom because I didn't do my schoolwork the way I should have, you know. And I enjoyed it a lot. But I knew I didn't want to do that all my life because I saw the people that worked in the restaurant industry were a different kind of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours.
Yeah, a lot of hours.
Late nights.
They weren't dependable. You never knew when they were going to show up for work. Mm-hmm. But us busboys, we worked hard. We really did, and we got tip money. You know, it was fun.
Yeah.
And Kenny and Mr. Fisher treated us great. They yelled at us, but they treated us great. You know?
So Tom, you mentioned you're working a lot of hours, and it's affecting your grades. At what point did you decide I'm going to go to college?
Well, I didn't know what I was going to do. My senior in high school, I didn't. I did okay in school, but not great. I could have gotten into college, but my parents didn't go to college. Mm-hmm. They were good people, but education just wasn't a lot we talked about at home. So I went to Belleville Junior College. Mm-hmm. Had too much freedom there, and me and my buddies would go to the bar behind the school and just things like that, and I didn't do well there. So after 2 years of that, I was 21 then, I guess. I took a job at Monsanto. My neighbor behind me worked at Monsanto, and he said, if you want to go to work at Monsanto, I can get you a job in the laboratory there. So I did that, and I walked in, oh my God, I'm over my head here. I don't know what's going on here, but it was a good job, and my first job, I was working at a clothing store downtown Belleville part-time too, and they offered me this job at Monsanto and $475 a month, and I thought, what am I going to do with all this money?
Sure.
So I worked there, took that job, and worked there in the laboratory for 5 years, and I got married in between time there in 1971. Bev and I got married, my kid's mother, and then I transferred out of there after was it 5 years? Maybe I'm losing track now. And I went to and took a job in accounting.
Okay. And so I'll get back to that, but we got to back up, and I need to know how you met Beverly.
We met at Panorama Bowling Alley, where I frequented all the time. They had dances down there every Friday night, and I met her there. And we dated for, I guess, year and a half. And
did she just stand out to you among all the people that were there?
A friend introduced her, and her and her cousin, and we started seeing each other. I was seeing another girl at the time, kind of, but then I decided I didn't want to see her anymore, and she kind of threw a fit, and
Happens.
Yeah. So then Bev and I started dating, and we dated for a year and a half, and we got married in 1970, July 11th, 1970. And we're together for 28 years.
Did you realize pretty quickly that she was the one, that at some point you were going to propose to her?
I think I did, yeah. It was, it was kind of obvious for both of us, I think, that we were going to get married. And so we got married in 70. I was at Monsanto working in the lab.
And tell us about your wedding day. July 11th, 1970.
July 11th, 1970, hotter than blazes.
I can figure.
Yeah. Got married at the CK and LVI Hall on 159. We got married in the Union Methodist Church, and they had a reception out there at the CK and LVI. We paid for our own wedding. And when we left there after the wedding reception, we went home back to our apartment and opened up the cards so we could have enough money to go to Lake of the Ozarks.
Is that your honeymoon?
Our honeymoon, Lake of the Ozarks, yeah. So we went down there.
And were a lot of your buddies that you maintained relationships for all these years, were they at the wedding too?
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, my friends were in the wedding. They're not close friends of mine today, though.
Yeah.
One passed away. One I am. One Georgie and I we're still good friends. Play golf together and that. But he was my best man. But the other guys, one of them passed away, and it's just the other guy we drifted apart. So I made you make new friends over the years.
Over the years, right?
And that's what's happened. But got married, moved into an apartment, and then a couple of years later we bought our first house. And I can remember we paid $19,900 for it.
This is 72.
70.
72 you bought the house, right?
Yeah. And I remember the payment, insurance, and taxes were $144 a month, and I thought, how in the hell am I going to pay for this a month?
You can't get a car for under $19,900 now.
A used one,
right? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
At the time you got married, as you mentioned, you were working for Monsanto. What specifically was your job there? You've got 2 years of junior college education, and people are saying, your grandkids and kids are saying, okay, he's got 2 years of education. What's he doing in the lab? What were you doing there?
I was a lab analyst. They would bring samples in from the departments, and we would analyze them. And it was kind of a batch analysis. They'd send them in, and we'd give them GLCs. We ran gas liquid chromatographs. We'd put it in there, and it'd give out results whether they continue on the process or not. So it was a good job, but I was young, and I could take some time off. I remember that, and my boss would get mad at all of us if we weren't working the way he thought we should work.
So your next, did you move up at Monsanto then? What was your next job?
I went into accounting then.
Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years, and then I became a cost analyst. And that was not my cup of tea.
Why not?
I just don't feel I was good at accounting. But I did it for a couple of years, and I saw an opportunity to get a foreman job, and a production foreman. I was in over one of the departments, and so I took that foreman job, and I trained under a guy. And when I took that job, I knew nothing about it.
What were they making in there?
In my department, we had chlorophenols.
Okay.
You heard of the famous Sturgeon, Missouri case where the tank car erupted and all those people were. That was my department that had that loaded that tank car.
Oh wow.
And but I trained under a guy when I took over. I was told I'm going to train with him for a month or two. Well, he came to me and told me, he said, look, you've got to work 16 hours a day. You've got to learn this job better than your operators know it, because if you don't, they're going to be screwing you to death. I had union employees working for me, and I thought to myself, I don't know anything about this job, but if I know more than they do, and I'm out here 16 hours a day, the 8 hours that I'm home, they're going to be screwing me to death. So I thought, we can't do this. And I had a chief operator, an old grizzled guy, and he said, let's get rid of him and we'll run this department. So I told my boss that, and that's what we did. And I never thought, I wasn't a chemical, they got chemical engineers doing the jobs that I had now. And I thought, I don't know the process in chemistry well, but I can work with people. I felt that was my strong suit. And I dealt with the union people there, and at first I had some grievances. They'd get on me about something they didn't like, and I would have to go before the union committee. But that kind of ended. That wasn't a problem later on, and I enjoyed working with people.
And Tom, it's interesting being in sports for all of my adult life. Yeah. I've always found that the best coaches and managers are the ones that manage people. And like you say, you didn't know chemical engineering, but what you have to do is understand that these are people, human beings with feelings and emotions that you're dealing with, and you have to manage people on a human level. If you do that, you're going to succeed.
Well, and I officiated basketball for 30 years, and I found out, just me observing coaches, is the ones that coached, that knew how to manage the people, like you said. You had to know which guy you could holler at and which guy you couldn't holler at, And that to me was part of what made a good coach.
Good. And would you regard that stay as that foreman? Was that highly successful? Did you get it to where you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I did. I think I did. I worked for some unusual people during that time. At Monsanto, they used to bring guys in both accounting and production and maintenance. They'd come in and they'd work for a year or two as an engineer, and then they'd bring them down and make them supervisor over a department, and that would be my boss. Well, some of them had no more idea how to manage people than a man on the moon. So I worked for some great people, and I worked for some people that I couldn't get along with at all. And but overall, I had good experiences with it.
How do you handle people that you can't get along with? Now, handle that isn't a good word. How do you make it productive to have when you work with somebody you don't really get along with?
Well, I think you got to get them to see your way of thinking partially, And on my job today, that's been almost 30 years since I left Monsanto, 25. But I'm thinking of my job today. I go out and I talk to people, and I don't try not to be what I call a hard ass. Sometimes you have to be that way, but you got to get them to your way of thinking, and you got to find a middle ground sometimes.
Okay, I want to go back now, and we'll swing back to work, but I want to go back to the day in 1974 when the doctors told you and Beverly that you were going to have twins.
I'll never forget it. We got a call from Dr. Smith, and he said to Bev, he talked to Bev, he said, "Are you sitting down?" And she said, "No, I need you to sit down." And he said, "You're going to have twins." Oh my God. And we were overjoyed, And I remember my mom saying, "This is not going to be easy. This is going to be difficult." And it was very difficult. 2 weeks after they were born, she had to go back in the hospital. Let me backtrack a little bit here. The year before, 10, 11 months before they were born, my dad was in a hospital down in Breeze, Illinois, and we went down to visit him. Bev and I did with my sister. And on the way home, we had a wreck in the car. And a guy pulled out in front of us, and I hit him. And my head knocked out the windshield, and I broke my hand. Bev hit her head on the dash and snapped her head back.
And this is pre-seat belts, right?
We had seat belts, but no harness.
Got okay.
Just the belt.
Yeah.
And luckily, we had our belts on, or we'd probably been through the windshield. And my sister, she just hit her mouth on the wheel, and so we went back to the hospital, and I had to get a brace put on my hand for about a month. And Bev, she was all right, she said. Well, 2 weeks after they were born, I was at work at Monsanto, and I get a call from the next door neighbor. Bev's had a seizure. So went to the hospital. She didn't remember having children.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Said I wasn't going to get emotional. It's a tough time. And thank God she came out of it all right, but she has had a seizure disorder ever since.
Did it take a while for her to recognize that she had children?
Yes. She didn't know she'd had children.
So
have I had the children? Yeah, you had twins. And what are their names? But that lasted about 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she came back.
Because the babies had to eat.
So she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh. How did you handle that?
Well, fortunately, I had my grandmother and my 2 great aunts, and they came to our house, and they stayed with us. And they took care of the kids, And we were running back and forth to doctors. She had to go to a specialist, and it was a grand mal seizure.
Now, is that, Tom, a product of the accident?
Well, I think it was. Now we think it was. That's probably what caused it.
And it's interesting that you got, because everybody thinks that, and it is. Having twins is difficult. But if you have the twins first, did it seem like your other kids were easy?
Well, we just had one more. Brent.
One more, right? Yeah.
Brent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was never easy. I'm kidding.
So, but what was it like? Tell us.
Let me tell you about Kendra and Kyle.
Yeah, that's what I
They're
want
2
to know.
months apart. She's the oldest. He's 6'1", she's 5'1", but they never fought. Never fought. And but they fought with Brent. He's 6 years younger. But and one thing I decided when all 3 of my children were born is they're going to get an education.
Yeah,
I'm going to push them.
It's important. Yeah. When
my mother-in-law told me one time, "You push these kids too hard." I said, "No, kids want to be pushed."
Yeah, it's
you got to push them.
And again, it's just like sports, isn't it?
Yeah.
The very best, they want to be coached, and that's being a parent is kind of like being a coach, right?
Yeah.
So, what did you sense with the twins? There were times that they had an unusual connection. I hear a lot about how twins they realize maybe what the other is thinking. What was it like being around twins?
I don't remember that at all, but they were close and very competitive in school with each other.
Okay, and that's great.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably a product again of you.
But they were different.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they were different as night and day on their likes and dislikes, but they were close, and they had a lot of close friends in high school. And they did a lot of things together, and in grade school and high school.
So they were competitive in terms of grades?
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good for you, isn't it?
Yeah. They were very competitive in grades.
So did you have the opportunity, because you're working really hard and you're getting involved with officiating, did you have much of an opportunity to spend time with them in regards to sports, coaching teams and things like that?
I didn't coach.
Okay.
I don't think I ever did that. I went to all the games,
sure,
sporting events. With Kendra never played sports.
Okay.
She didn't like sports at all. So she was a cheerleader in grade school, junior high school, and then she was a pom girl in high school. And Kyle only thing he played was golf, and went to all those.
What were some of your most memorable bonding experiences with your kids? Whether it be sports, games, education, helping with homework.
Well, I didn't help with homework like the kids have to do today. They have to help their kids in homework, and I'd have been a lost ball if I had to do that, I'll tell you. But it seems like that they give the kids more homework today than maybe they did back then. I don't know, but we did a lot of things together, functions together, ball games together. We were a family, we did everything together, and probably ate dinner more together than people do nowadays,
Yep. Did you have those sorts of traditions? When I was growing up, it was, whether Saturday night or Sunday dinner. Did you have any weekly traditions beyond the holidays? Tell us about some of the meals that the family would have together.
it was always dinner, dinner together.
Okay.
But the holidays were always seemed like they were at our house or my mom and dad lived in a condo near our subdivision, and we either had Christmas there or at our house. We had Christmas Eve with Bev's family, and Christmas Day with our family. That's usually the way we went, and that's what I remember most about that. And they were close to my mom and dad. They were lived right up the street, and we were very close with them. Bev's mom and dad lived out of town, but we went up to see them a lot. And her dad was a dandy. He was a real card. Her mom was her stepmom. So
and you had a good relationship with them, with your in-laws?
With Jack, my father-in-law had a great. Betty wasn't as good till later on. We had a better relationship, but she was a little hard to understand when Bev moved out and got an apartment, and I helped her move out. It was kind of contentious then.
Sure,
that was tough.
I get that.
But we did things together, and there was never any family problems with any of us. And, we all did everything together, really.
So you have the little ones, and they're growing up, and you move on from Monsanto. What was the next? Well, you were with Monsanto, but what was the next thing that you did after you left as the foreman? And then you done.
I was there till
the accounting. Right?
Yeah, and I had that foreman job till I retired.
Okay.
And I think 1990, end of '96, I guess, they offered us a buyout. Monsanto, things changed over the years, big time. There's hardly anything left down. When I started there were over 2,000 people. Now they've probably got 100. And the writing was on the wall. Departments I went have all closed up now. So in '96, when they offered us that buyout, they offered it to 27 of us, and we all took it. And so I left there, and for 6 months I didn't do much of anything. They even gave us unemployment. So unemployment tells you you gotta go out and look for a job.
Right.
I don't really want anything right now. So they sent me up to Highland to a flower company to interview, and the plant manager calls me in after I interviewed the guy. He said, "You really don't want this job, do you?" I said, "No, I don't. They just sent me up there because they made me come." He said, "Well, hell, you make more than I do, so I knew you didn't want this job." So I said, "No, I'm just, I'm not going to take this." So then I went to work for St. Clair County for a couple of years.
One more thing about Monsanto, though. From the time you started to the time you ended, obviously we get the computers, we get the internet, things change dramatically. Was there one thing that sticks out to you that changed the most about business from during your career?
Yeah.
What was it?
EPA.
Really?
Yes. When I started there, we dumped chemicals in the water that went to the river that you wouldn't believe. I mean, this pendulum never stops in the middle. It seems like it's always one end or the other in everything in life. And I'm telling you what, I know where things are dumped down there that they could be in big trouble if they.
I was going to say, I was going to ask you, because you're retired.
Landfills.
Yeah. Is it a bad thing? Was it?
It was
society?
very bad. It was very bad what we did.
Yeah.
But then they went to the other end of the spectrum. We couldn't even put rainwater that went around the tanks, and they built dikes around them. We couldn't put that to the sewer. It had to be treated. So we had to put treatment center in. And of course, then the labor costs are through the roof, and it ran them out of business. Yeah. And when I started there, when I started the foreman job, times were good. If you got 4 hours work out of a guy a day, you got a lot. And the company didn't care because they were making a lot of money. Then when times got tough and we asked people to work more, the union, whoa, wait a minute. And they fought it tooth and nail. And I've got guys that I worked with that are union guys to this day. We argue. They say, oh, yeah, the company, they did that to us. I said, no, everybody did it to each other. I said, when times are good, the company didn't care if you didn't work. And then times got tough, the union didn't want to work hard. And it's the company's fault, and it's the union's fault. So that was the biggest change at Monsanto when I was
And then
there.
ultimately, was it after you left, or were you still there when they started getting sued all the time?
Oh, it was while I was still there.
Okay.
Yeah. We had lawsuits. And,
Yeah.
We had that one big Sturgeon, Missouri case, and they had attorneys, and they even brought the jury out there one day. And I was told by my boss, go over to the other department and do something. We don't want you near here because we don't want them talking to you. And I had a guy from the EPA come out one time where we made this, where the dioxin came from, and they took that still pot out, cut it up in pieces, and sent it down to Texas. So a guy from the EPA come out to me, and he said, where was that? I said, that still pot's gone over there. Well, where did they pump the residue off of? They pumped to this tank over here, and the tank's gone now, too. Where'd they all go? I said, I don't know. They sent them to Texas someplace. Well, did you ever see a leak in this tank? I said, nope, never did. You're sure that tank never leaked? Nope. So he left, and my boss came down. I said, what are you asking? I told him. He said, well, what about that leak in that line that blew all over the wall where you can still see it? I said, well, he didn't ask me that. He said, that's what I like about you, Jackson. You know when to keep your mouth shut.
That's great.
So it was that was the biggest change in Monsanto. Absolutely. It was just crazy.
I know that throughout your life you really enjoyed basketball officiating. When and how did that start?
Started in, the first time it started, I was 21. And I went to do some, it was, I don't know if it was high school or I think it was, as I call it, a grab-ass league, you know. And it was in the old Cathedral High School in downtown Belleville. And this one coach just jumped all over me. And I thought, you know what? I don't need this. And I quit for 8 years. I didn't do it again till I was almost 28, 29. And I thought, I'm a little more mature now. I think I can handle it. I'm going to do it again. And I started officiating. And I started out with junior high school games, freshman, sophomore games. And I met this friend, this guy that I worked some freshman, sophomore games with. And he said, why don't we team them up together and do games? And I said, well, let's do that, okay? And he was kind of the hustling games for us. He called everywhere, and we started out doing games, and we got up to the varsity level. And we were doing games, and I had a guy that I worked a game with, Don Cobb. And Don said, I can't work the Centralia tournament this year. I'm going to go watch Illinois play in the Liberty Bowl. Would you take my spot at Centralia? And I said, well, absolutely. I worked some JV games there, and I worked a varsity game there. I said, you call Bob Jones, the AD, and run it by him, and I'll be glad to take his place. So he got me in. And to me, if I ever thought I could do the Centralia tournament, that was the tops to me in basketball. Because I'd been going there since I was a sophomore in high school, watching games. So I got in there that year, and then toward the end of it's a 3-day tournament. The third day, they had an official get hurt, and Bob Jones came to me and says, we need another guy. You got anybody? I said, let me call my partner, Kevin. I called Kevin up, and he came down and worked the last day with me.
Great.
And we worked that tournament for close to 20 years then, I guess. I worked 5 championships there. I saw some big-time players there. Antoine Walker. His teammate was Donovan McNabb.
Wow.
In the championship game, Walker had 48 points, 20 rebounds, and played the point.
Oh, man.
And they beat Centralia in the championship game.
Wow.
So I saw some unbelievable basketball there and some unbelievable players.
Is Walker the best, or did you?
The best I ever saw?
Yeah.
Walker and, I guess, Darius Miles. He didn't play at the Centralia tournament, but we did a lot of his games at Eastside and tournaments, and he was phenomenal, too.
And quite a run there. 20 regionals, 10 sectional games.
Yeah.
Quite a career. You must be very proud of the way that all unfolded.
I am. I didn't go to the state tournament. I quit at 59. Most of my buddies went far past that fishing, but I felt like I'd had enough. I'd had a heart attack 2 years prior to that, and I thought it's time. I probably would have went to the state tournament the next couple of years, but I decided I'd had enough. So. So I decided it's time to quit. And when you quit, you miss it right away. I mean, the first 5 years, I'd go to a game and thought, why am I not out there? Why am I not doing this? And it was just, I really enjoyed it. Two things I felt I was good at in life: officiating basketball and the job I have now.
And tell us about that, that you, I'm air quoting here, just retired from.
Yeah, I'm a compliance officer for the county. And I go out when people won't take care of their property, junk cars, high weeds, things like that. Try to talk them into cleaning it up. I'm a deputy for zoning issues. I write tickets. I was in court this morning. But the bottom line is, I try not to write a ticket. I don't want to see people fined. I want to get it cleaned up.
You're just like an official.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. So I try to get the property cleaned up. Let's take a step back if we can.
Yes, we can.
We talk about the officiating. 5 years ago, I was inducted in the Illinois Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My wife just bought me a ring for it. She insisted I have this. Yeah. And so I got inducted in the Hall of Fame right during COVID. Kyle and Brent went with me to the ceremony.
That's great.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. So
you mentioned when before the twins were born, that Beverly had the grand mal seizure, and you lost her after 28 years. Was that a product of the?
No, we divorced. After 28 years, yeah.
Okay.
We divorced.
But she's since.
She lives in Waterloo.
She lives in Waterloo, Illinois. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we get together on every holiday and every birthday. Jeannie and I live in a condo, and we have a clubhouse, and we were all together Sunday for Brent's youngest birthday.
Great.
Or his oldest birthday. And she comes, she and her husband come, and so everything's fine.
Good. And how did you and Jeannie come about?
Well, Gary Lynn called me and said, come out to this bar and restaurant, and said, Jackie Smith's singing here tonight. So I said, I want a couple girls I want you to meet. So I said, oh, okay, I'll come out, Gary. So I go out there, and I meet Jeannie, and we talk for a while, and I thought, well, I think I'd like to take her out. So I finally got her phone number. That was difficult too, but I got it, and I called her up, and we started dating. And our first date was on. I wasn't quite divorced yet, and she wasn't divorced yet. And my first date was on Bev and I's anniversary, July 11th. And we went over here to Lindbergh. Can't think of the name of the restaurant now. I have these senior moments. When
Sure, I understand.
But that was our first date, and started dating her. We dated for about a year and a half. And then her boss, Andrew Craig, retired at Bank of America, and she got transferred to San Francisco. So I moved her out there across country and flew back, and she was there for 7 years.
And you maintained kind of a long-distance relationship?
Kind of, I saw some other people, and I think she did. I didn't ask. But after after 7 years, I called her up one day, and I said, you're about ready to retire? And she said, why don't you retire and come back here, and we'll get a place together. So she did. I said, I'm not holding you back this time, though. I flew out there, and she hired a company, and we drove her car back to Belleville, and we lived in an apartment for a year and didn't murder each other. So
good thing.
So we decided to get married. It was be 19 years, July 15th.
Oh, congratulations! So a couple of hot as blazes weddings for Tom, right?
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah. What was that? Tell us about that. Did you do it up for the wedding with Jeannie?
Well, no, a little more casual here. We got married in Fisher's Restaurant.
Oh, great.
Just us and our children, and we had a couple grandchildren then. And we just had it in one of the rooms, and the chief judge, Andy Gleason, in St. Clair County married us, and we got together for dinner, and that was it. We didn't go anyplace till a little later, but I bought a house and moved in the next day after that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get that out of the way.
Yeah. So, and she has 2 children. She had 2 children. Her daughter Amy lives in Brentwood, or Rock Hill, and her son lived over in Brentwood. He is since deceased. I don't think I can talk about that.
That's fine. I want to talk about Kyle and Kendra and Brent, because you mentioned that you pushed them to pursue education. How did that work out?
Great.
Tell us about how they've done.
When they, I got to move around here a little bit. When they were ready to go to college, we went to Illinois first, because I thought I want to go to Illinois. Well, we went up to Illinois, and they looked too big. Kendra says, "Where's the shopping?" I said, "Well, it's way across town, So then we went to Illinois State, and they didn't like the looks of that either. So meanwhile, Kyle got from a golf camp that my dad sent him to in Florida. He got a book from Ping, showed every school in the nation that played golf. And he thought he might like to play golf in college, but he knew he wouldn't get a big scholarship. And he looked at this book and he said, "Dad, Ole Miss and Mississippi State are pretty reasonable." And he said, "Where are they?" I said, "Well, all I can tell you about Ole Miss, it's in Oxford, Mississippi, and Archie Manning played quarterback there." So we decided, and we got the book, so it was reasonable. And so we drove down Labor Day 1992, stayed in Memphis overnight, and drove down the next morning. And they had a football game going on. I told them before we left, I said, 1964, I went to the first game of the Cardinal World Series. Stood in line all night to get standing room only tickets. And 3 guys in front of us came up from Ole Miss. They had never seen a Major League Baseball game. They had no coats, and they slept on the sidewalk, drank beer the whole time, and they did this cheer, hotty toddy something. I said, "That's all I remember about it." And Kendra said, "Oh, Dad, they don't have a cheer like that." Well, as soon as you step on campus at Ole Miss, it's hotty toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? They go through the whole thing. So we went down there, and when we got to the campus, we thought, "What's going on? There's people everywhere, and the game's not till at night." Well, the advisor took us through it. He said, "We tailgate all day for the games." And he said, "And we dress for the games." And most of the boys wear white shirt and a blazer, and the girls wear dress. Girls definitely wear dresses. And so as soon as Kendra walked down sorority row, she says, "That's where I want to go." Kyle wasn't quite as sure. So we get down there and for orientation, and Kyle he was going to major in chemical engineering. He saw the Chem E lab, and he said, "Oh, Dad, I can't do this." I said, "Well, if a dummy like me can understand, you can." "No, I'm going to major in something else." So he ended up majoring in accounting, and Kendra was in psychology. And they competed fiercely in college. They both graduated magna cum laude.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah. And so we'd go down there for football games. We went to a lot of games.
I was going to ask. I would guess you spent a few Saturdays in the Grove.
I can't tell you how many I spent there. So when we went down for games, Brent would always go. And so when he finished high school, now I went to all the boys' golf matches in high school. Kyle had a great team. He was on. They finished 4th in the state his senior year. He didn't play in college. Brent finished 3rd in the state as a freshman.
Wow.
5th in the state as a sophomore. Only place he wanted to go was Ole Miss, and he had scholarship offers everywhere. But
wow.
He said, "No, I'm going to Ole Miss." And I'll never forget the Texas A&M coach calling him, saying, "I'd like you to come down for a visit as soon as they could, June 1st of the senior year." And he said, "No, I'm going to Ole Miss." I said, "Take the trip." "No." He said, "I'm going to Ole Miss." So he went to Ole Miss, and the coach there didn't want him, so he didn't play. But we went to games there, and now 2 of Kendra's daughters went to Ole Miss. One's a junior there, one's graduated from there. And then Kyle's 2 girls, one's at Arkansas and one's at Iowa. So we've gotten around.
You started a tradition too, getting the right. It's now it's kind of a circle that people are going to college in the family. That's great.
Yeah. So now Brent's got 2 boys. They're 10 and 11. So
good.
What they'll want to do, who knows? Yeah. But
we talked earlier about bonding experience. What about what about golf with your sons? Number one, how much do you play with them? And number two, because they're so proficient, do they make you better?
Nothing's going to make me better. You know what Gary Lynn told me one time? At least the golf ability wasn't spread too thin in your family.
We have a mutual late great friend in Gary Lynn. Tell your grandkids and ultimately your great grandkids that are going to listen to this and watch this. Tell them about Gary Lynn.
The good guy.
Yeah, that's what Gary was known as, a good guy.
That was a good guy, and he and I were real good friends till the day he died. I was with him the day he passed away, and we went everywhere. He took me to Super Bowls. He was full of baloney, as you know. As a buddy of mine said, 75% of what Gary tells you is total BS, but you can live on the 35. Or 25.
Yeah. And he was a spotter for NFL and college football games on television. He was spent a lot of time. I think was Sam Rosen was his play-by-play guy. I know he spent a lot of time with Jack Buck because that's how we met, through Jack Buck. And I think that the most apt description that you could have for your late friend is he was a really good guy.
Yeah, he was. He at his funeral, Sam Rosen spoke, Kevin Slayton spoke, Joe Buck spoke. It was unbelievable. But we were friends for years there, and we all miss him. We still tell Gary Lynn stories. We our buddies get together. We constantly tell him, that reminds me of the story by Gary.
Yeah. Do you and Jeannie have Gary Lynn stories? Because
Jeannie went to school since 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
And he sat behind her because her name was Kilday and he was Lynn. So he was behind her all the time, and he said he aggravated me to death. And constantly aggravate me to death. And so he introduced us, I'll always love my first wife. She gave me 3 wonderful children. We just didn't have a lot in common, And Jeannie and I do everything together. She's my best friend, my wife.
That's great to hear. A lot of things have happened in your 80 years.
Yeah.
Number one, I guess the biggest change has come in the last 30 with the advent of the internet. Would you agree with that?
Probably so.
I mean, there's so much information now that we have access to with our phone that we used to have to go to get the Encyclopedia Britannica to learn, right? What are from your perspective, what are the biggest changes? I just almost handed you mine, but how about for you? What have the biggest changes been?
Television. I tell Gene and I talk about what if our parents, and they've been gone 25 years now. What if they sat down in our living room and saw this 70-inch TV we got sitting here? They wouldn't believe it, would they?
No.
And I can remember my dad run up there and change that channel with you.
We were the remote control.
That's right. And television's just, it's just what's not. And the internet, I can't tell you about it because I am not an internet person.
Good for you.
Yeah, I just don't enjoy doing that. I'll call one of the kids, and Jeannie's more proficient at it than I am. But I got if I got someone with the TV, I'll call Brent and Kristen. Hey, you got to help me out here, because I just. And Jeannie will say, "You have no patience," and I tell her, "Patience are for doctors."
Since everybody's going to be listening to this, I want to just get your take because you can talk to your children and your grandchildren in perpetuity here. And by the way, a lot of grandkids and maybe more on the way. Can we get the names of the grandkids? I've got them here if you want to. Do you want me to run them down?
I can get right. Addie, Sela, Olivia, Avia.
Yep.
Addie, Sela, Olivia, Avie, Brody, and Brooks.
Right.
I put them in their age chronology there.
Okay, good. And what about Jack and Michael?
And my wife's grandchildren, Jack is 16, Michael is 14.
Okay.
To can't exclude them. We go to a lot of their games. They live over here. Jack plays soccer for Brentwood High School, and Michael is in the 8th grade at Brentwood Junior High. And we're over here this time of year most weekends with baseball games.
And if you can give those youngsters a little bit of advice on how to lead a life that has led to the happiness that you've experienced, what piece of advice would you give those youngsters?
Always be with your family.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
I think my greatest accomplishment in life will be the ones I leave behind.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. You've done a fabulous job, and that brings us as we head down the stretch here. You have the opportunity to tell each of your children what you think of them and how proud you are of them. And let's start with Kyle. From the time that Kyle was born and going through life, tell us about his personality and what your pride is in Kyle.
Smartest person I know. He was shy as a youngster, not shy anymore. Kendra, we called her the little general. She had opened doors for him in kindergarten and 1st grade. She's divorced now, lives with her boyfriend. She raised those girls and did a phenomenal job. Just very, very proud of her. Brent's the tiger. I worried myself to death about him. What is this boy going to do in life? All he can do is play golf. I didn't realize he had great communication skills. And they've all three been very successful.
That's great. And what about Jeannie? What does Jeannie mean to you, and has she meant to you over the last 19 years and into the future?
Well, we're best friends. We've been married 19 years. I think I knew from the day I met her that we would be together because just we get along so well. We fight like everybody does, but she is the kindest, most giving person you could ever meet. Absolutely. And I think my children would agree with her. Even when Kyle got married, I was seeing someone else, but he invited her to the wedding.
Oh, that's great.
She's just a wonderful person. Yeah. I can't find anything negative that I could say about my wife.
Two more things. Number one, here we sit on, this is April 30th of 2025, and I mentioned that you kind of retired. Are you ever going to retire? Yeah. Really retire?
Yes. If Jeannie would retire, I'd retire. So we can be together more and do some things. But I enjoy what I'm doing right now. 2 days a week, that's great. And she works 4 days a week.
Okay.
So I just think you have to stay active, I watched my dad retire and sit down and watch TV and die, and I'm not interested in doing that.
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to come,
Never know. And you set me up, though, for our next and our last question. What is next? You say you want to do some things. What kind of things would you like to do?
Oh, I'd like she and I to travel a little bit, not a lot. I'm not a good traveler. I'm gone 4 or 5 days. I'm ready to come home. I'm not. I don't want to go to. I don't want to go to Florida for 2 months. Doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
But I like to take short trips.
Good.
Yeah. Well, we just went to French Lick, Indiana. Spent a weekend there. I like taking little trips like that.
Yeah. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right?
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
It has been such a pleasure to meet you and talk about your life. Congratulations on your family. Congratulations on your careers.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Tom.
Enjoy.
Good to see you.
Okay, you bet.